Good morning, everyone. Welcome. My name is Menachem Creditor. It's my honor to serve as scholar in residence and rabbi for UJA Federation of New York. We bring you Torah and music, blessing, and community every weekday. We've been doing so since March 18th, 2020. Today it is April 22nd, 2025. That is more than 5 years of Torah every single weekday, finding each other from every corner of the world to say good morning, to learn together, to support each other. It's good to see all of you. Lisa, welcome. Jennifer, welcome. Linda, good morning, my friend. It's good to see you. Let's see who else is here. We'll get started on this broadcast after saying hello to some good friends. Chana, sending love to Jerusalem. Boker Tov. Joyce, hope that you are well. Marilyn and Andrew, good morning, good morning. Hi, Jack. It is a beautiful Tuesday morning, that's true. Fabrice, you're in Tel Aviv. You're there for another 24 hours. Thank you for sharing a few of those moments with us. Amy and Carl, Jonathan and Arlene, Ashley, Tzion, and Corinne. Hi, Robin. Hope that you're well. All right, let's take a breath. We'll sing a bracha. We'll learn some Torah. Hi, Dale. Hi, Sharon, Natalie, and Sandy. Good morning, friends. Good morning, friends. If any of you noticed a smile on my face toward the end of the bracha, it's because I haven't mentioned the number broadcast. I was waiting for Penny. Penny, so glad. Thank you for reminding us. It is broadcast 1287. It is also, as Judy just posted, day 564 since October 7th, since we have seen our 59 beloveds who are still being held in captivity. There are many things happening in the world, but we cannot be distracted because the truth is we're the only ones keeping focus, it seems. Even the Israeli government is lost right now in an enormous battle using biblical language about the priorities of adjudicating this war, even while in Cairo, mediators are meeting to discuss, please God, the end of the war and the release of the hostages. It is also clear that we as a people repeat patterns in history. And I'd like to get to the Parsha, and I'll do that now as a framing of this current moment. Um, and I ask your forgiveness because it's hard to speak with precision. It's hard to speak as carefully, probably, as one should, but it is really important to get this right. And if Pesach's lessons are going to linger with us, then we are absolutely called to remember the language of the past as we move this forward. We are going to walk into the next moment of our history more informed, more prepared, because we will remember what we've gone through. And we know what the threat of forgetting our history is like. There are many philosophers who've talked about those who forget the past. Well, we are not condemned to repeat it. We do not live in an inevitable cycle of pain, but it is clear that when it comes to leading the Jewish people, we have not really come that far. We, thank God, are in a place where we can make our own decisions, but how we make our decisions and how much we trust our partner decision makers is very publicly and very clearly an issue. So I offer this thought in the hopes, please God, that there can be an emerging consensus in the leadership of the State of Israel how to bring the hostages home and to help us move forward into our next moment of history. It isn't actually about them, no matter which them you think I mean. Self determination, which is the priority of Zionism and the mandate of the modern Jewish community, self determination means that we do not wait for someone else to tell us we have the right to be free, but part of that is also the responsibility to make the decisions that we must make for ourselves. That's what we fought for. And so, irrespective of the health of another community, we must be a healthy community. And in order to do that, we must find some kind of wholeness, some kind of togetherness, the joy of just knowing that we have each other. That is a big deal. And I wanted to bless us in advance of the teaching for this morning, even though I've been going on as a preamble for a little while, that we see that as something worthy and something within reach. We must find a way toward that really lofty goal. In this week's Parsha, you know, it's Parshat Shemini, there is the story of Nadav and Avihu, the two sons of Aaron, the priest. And Nadav and Avihu, for some reason, again, I'm not going to deal with their reason because the Torah doesn't present it. They offer a sacrifice that's known in the Torah as an Eish Zara, that's known as a strange fire. And that strange fire, for some reason, elicits a fire from before the altar that consumes them, just as, same language, the fire consumed the commanded sacrifice. All we know about what Nadav and Abihu did, it was outside of the system. They did it in the wrong way. They did what felt like the right thing to them. In fact, it felt holy to them. But when they did it, they violated something, and a fire shot out and consumed them. Even if, as some scholars suggest, the fire that emerges from the altar to consume them is not a punishment, as hard as that is to say, even if it is the natural thing that the altar does to accept a gift when offered, meaning it isn't a conscious action by God, it's what an altar does. When you come too close to the holy, you have to be prepared, which is one of the reasons we read this in Shemot. When the priest would walk around wearing their garb, part of what they had were the bells and the pomegranates at the hems of their robe. Why? The text of the Torah says, so that they won't die when they serve. There's something dangerous about being so close to power, and that is true in deeply metaphoric ways, and in the Torah's language, it's true in literal ways. And we see that Nadav and Avihu come too close to the holy without the protection of the system, and they are devoured by it. When you look right now at the language being used by ministers in Knesset, in the Israeli government, the language they are using are accusing each other of things from the textual past. The prioritization of defeating Hamas over releasing the hostages is a betrayal of so much rabbinic values. The rabbis say that there is no mitzvah as high as Pidyon Shvuim, as redeeming the hostages. That's the highest mitzvah. And they're comparing it to all the other mitzvot, including Zachort Asher Asa Lecha Amalek. Remember what Amalek did to you. Why? Why is this so important to bring up? Because these are hard questions, and our people has actually faced these questions before, never on this scale, never in this moment, and never with the power that we now wield in the world. And so when ministers of Knesset use language that is from our ancient past, they are also reflecting that our ancient ancestors, the sages of memory, we call them Chazal, they had these debates. They tried to figure out what was the highest priority and what is the cost of freedom. Well, the answer must be, and the vast majority of Israelis agree, the vast majority know that the highest principle is to redeem the captives. There are 59 beloveds, and prioritizing anything over them is unconscionable. Hand in hand with that pursuit must be maintaining the sanctity and safety of our people, which was the other mandate of Zionism: self-determination and safety. We can do both. The failure of October 7th, as study after study, first by Tzahal, the IDF, about its own systemic failure, must be followed by a political self-examination. That is hard to talk about because we love our home, and our home was desecrated. What do you think the Maccabees had to do when they returned to rededicate the temple? We must do the same thing. We have to clean up our schmutz, just like the Maccabees did. And part of how we do that is we acknowledge where it came from. It's not to say that the Israeli government made October 7th happen, but the Israeli government let October 7th happen. Moral culpability is on Hamas, but cleaning our own home and making sure that the only fires offered on our altar are pure, are the right ones, that is a moral mandate handed down to us through text, tradition, and values, which is why the rabbis 2,000 years ago, facing an epidemic of kidnapping of Jews, led to them making the statement that the highest value is saving our sisters and brothers. There is no higher value. How could there be? We must make sure to do better than we did before so that we do not have repeats of this history. As Robin is reminding us that there is the March of the Living this week, Yom HaShoah is this week. We learn the costs of not having the power that we must have to protect ourselves. I used to define Zionism as the ethical use of power we wish we didn't need, but we have learned, friends, the costs of sitting and waiting for the Messiah. We don't do that anymore. And so here we are, in a modern moment, using ancient language, reading the story of Nadav and Avihu being devoured by fire because they breached the system and came in contact with power carelessly. They did so for their own reasons. Perhaps they were beautiful reasons. Perhaps they were enthusiastic. Perhaps they just wanted to glorify God. But when they pursued their mission without paying attention to the rules, they died. That's not the definition of holiness. It doesn't say anything about their intent. It doesn't even blame God. But it means that when we do not respect the rules and we are not careful enough in wielding power that we must have, we end up sounding like some of the ministers of Knesset sound today. And we cannot afford that. To call each other leaders of zealots and to accuse a leader in Israel of having a diaspora mentality, this is language that might sound tame, but it is blasphemous to say such things at each other. In memory of our beloveds, including Marcia sharing right now that she was at Camp Ramah Darom for Pesach, where I was blessed to spend 2 Pesachs, hope to come back sometime, and our beloved Hirsch Goldberg Poland, Zichrono Livracha, and his family, including Rachel and Jonathan, spent many Pesachs there. And this year, they dedicated the Parochet, the Ark cover, in memory of Hirsch, and Rachel and John via Zoom were present. I share all of this with you because we cannot look at what happened to our beloveds as something that happens and will happen. We are called to live history in 2 ways, to live time in 2 ways. And Rabbi Jonathan Sachs of blessed memory reinforced this message by saying Jews live in 2 kinds of time. We live in cyclical time, what philosophers often call the eternal return. As Professor Yosef Yerushalmi once said, this week in the Torah, Joseph will be thrown into a pit by his brothers. Next week, he will be sold into Egypt. The week after, he will rise to second in command over Egypt. And next year, he'll be thrown into the pit again. We live these reenactments. Pesach itself is a return to the past. But we also live forward in time. We believe that we are not condemned to repeat all aspects of the past. We must do better. in the language we use when we're talking to each other. We must trust each other more deeply if we are to chart a healthier path for our family. And we must, as the Maccabees did, clean out the schmutz from our own holy spaces if we are to emerge any different than Nadav and Avihu. Zichronam livracha. May their memories be for a blessing. I'll close with a teaching in a book by Samuel Dresner of blessed memory, a protege of Abraham Joshua Heschel, called the Tzaddik. He speaks about the qualities of a holy person in the tradition of Chassidut. And he asked his teacher, Abraham Joshua Heschel, to write the introduction. And in the introduction, Heschel has this eloquent way of saying, "You might know," he says, "that there is a space on earth that was rarely visited, just one time a year, by one person. It's the Holy of Holies in Jerusalem, one space, only visited by the high priest, one person, only on one day, Yom Kippur. That's why the Avodah service on Yom Kippur is so profound. It happens once a year." But Heschel points out that there was a person who visited there even less frequently. And this is all mythic, who knows? But because the high priest is the only one allowed to touch the ground of the Holy of Holies, they used to lower someone on pulleys once every 50 years into the Holy of Holies to clean it. Because after all, someone had to come in and clean up the schmutz even after holy intentions were fulfilled. If self-determination is going to be real for the Jewish people in an ongoing, sustained way, it is going to be because we took responsibility for that self-determination and cleaned up our messes, acknowledging our failures when they have happened, especially at the cost of October 7th. The mismanagement of our nation's welfare is on us. It is on our decision makers. It is on all of us, especially our sisters and brothers in Israel. And the kind of fighting that is happening right now in Knesset gets in the way of what self-determination is called to do, which is to remind us of our values and give us the ability to enact them, to make them real, including the mandate to bring them home now. So, I ask you to join with me, like you've never joined with me, in praying. Praying. This rusty dog tag, which pounds on my heart with every step I take every day, just as whatever you are doing is a reminder in your heart, on your body, in your eyes, in your soul, that we have a mandate, which is to bring our family home. Call it out like you've never called it before. Say the words with me. Bring them home now. And when you send your heart to the east, add a little bit of fire. Not harmful fire, not a strange fire like Nadav and Avihu. Add the fire of Jewish and our allies in our community determination to live our values right and to hold ourselves accountable, because we are not perfect and sometimes our mistakes have terrible consequences. We did not make October 7th happen. We let it happen. And we cannot let this kind of blasphemous fighting be what we do with our power. It is unworthy of Am Yisrael. So add your fire. Here we go. Kolon baleva pnima nefesh Yehudi homia ulefate mizrach kadima ayin letzion Sophia od lo avda tikvateinu התקווה בת שנות 2000 להיות עם חופשי בארצנו, ארץ ציון וירושלים. להיות עם חופשי בארצנו, ארץ ציון וירושלים. Bring them home now. Am Yisrael Chai. See you tomorrow, my friends.